Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Buckshots with Trevor and Luke. I got the name right this time, unlike last week. But we're here talking again about ours and your Milwaukee Bucks, who are currently riding a 3-game win streak. Um, I guess Trevor, let's just get right into it. We don't need to go through all the intro crap. But last week, when we talked, we said that this probably has to be a week where the Bucks go 2-1, right? 1-2 at the worst. You can't go 0-3. 3-0 is probably out of the realm of possibility. Well, Trevor, they did it. They went 3-0. I guess before we get into the games, um, you know, we kind of hit it on the head there. Like 2-0 or 2-1 needs to happen. 3-0 would be great. Don't see it happening though. What are your initial thoughts just from watching Bucks basketball last week?
It was odd. Like the Hornets game was awesome. I mean, it's kind of what we've been talking about. They need to do. They need to get to the realization that all right, it's time to stop messing around, right? And I don't mean messing around like not taking it seriously, but getting into playoff mode.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that. And then when they fell behind a lot to the Heat, and we'll talk about both these games at length, but it just felt like the start of that 1-2 week, right? At least
Right.
for me, when they went down 10, and they flipped a script. And then, against the Bulls, they did what they needed to there. So, heck of a week. I mean, as perfect as it could go with the Bucks and extending to Phoenix not having Booker or Chris Paul today in their game that we'll talk about too. Really perfect week you could have for the Bucks.
For sure. Let's dive right into that Hornets game. I'll just run over some stats like usual. This game, if anyone's listening, anyone's watching on rerun, I bet you can guess the leading scorer for the Bucks in this game. It's who usually it is. Giannis with 26 points, 16 rebounds, 16 or 6 of 10 shooting, 0 of 2 from the 3-point line. Um, I guess before we jump into Giannis here, just to name off some other guys: Bobby Portis, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 7 of 14 shooting. Drew Holiday, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 7 of 15 shooting, 5 of 8 for threes. Trevor, before I ask you your thoughts on this game, I'm just going to make a note of something real quick. Giannis went 14 for 14 on free throws in this game. Obviously, we saw that he had, some struggles. We had talked about it this year, how his shooting looks better, his free throws look better. Last year, there's those struggles, especially in the playoffs. But that game 6 in the finals, Giannis went, 18 for 20 or 17, something like that on the free throw line. Now gone 14 for 14 on free throws. Trevor, does this, ease your mind a little bit of that, maybe Giannis's free throw shooting is here to stay. Maybe he's shooting it at a mid 70, high 70 clip. Could that even get up to 80% maybe come playoff time? But how do you feel about Giannis right now with free throw shooting? Obviously, with him being so dominant, getting to the hole so much and getting so many fouls.
I mean, it's better, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
don't really need, I don't think anybody will tell you we need 14 for 14. Really, all we ask for is like 10 for 14.
Hmm.
So I think it's there. I'm starting to wonder if it's not the mental aspect of it. I'm starting to wonder if it's just him just getting beaten the hell up inside
Right.
with not enough calls, not enough breaks. That seems to be more what's happening um, because clearly mentally it's not right. It's just not been that this year.
Right.
So that's nicer, but obviously if refs let games go, if he's on the court longer, if he's gassed going to the line, then that's gonna change, kind of like what we saw in the Bulls game. Little preview.
For sure. And then on the Hornet side of the ball, nobody really beat the Bucks, right? I mean, really the only player who had, and I don't even want to say outstanding, but a great game was Lamelo Ball, which has been come to expected because he's such a ball dominant player. I think he's opened a lot of people's eyes that he is an all star. He's a good player. He's not you know, his dad's not here to make sure everything's good for him. He's kind of doing this himself. He finished with 24 points on 9 of 18 shooting, 4 of 7 for three. Um, I guess Trevor, before we dive a little bit into the Bucks, I just want to talk some Lamelo Ball with you because I do think he's a very interesting basketball player. I don't know what your thoughts are on him, but just from watching him, to me he's kind of evolved his game this year. It's almost like he matured a little bit, and he's able to run an NBA franchise by himself. Um, and he's a sniper from the outside, can hit shots anywhere on the floor. Just give me your thoughts on Lamelo Ball as a player, and do you think that he's a thorn in the side for the Bucks for years to come?
I think so. He's a weird prospect. I don't even want to say prospect, but player. And the Hornets are a weird team, right?
Yeah.
This team kind of feels, and he's not going to turn into this, but he kind of feels like Giannis when the Bucks were always getting bounced in the first round, right?
Hmm.
They had a decent team, they had some decent players, but the depth, the star power wasn't really there. So I think the biggest question on him is to see if he can take it to the next level, and then on top of that, if the Hornets can get pieces around him,
Right.
because I think he's a great player, he's a winning player, but when Plumlee's the center, and as good as he's been this year, when Rozier's your starting point guard, it's basically nothing off the bench but Harrell and Oubre. You're not going to ever get far, especially in a loaded East.
Right. And I think the Hornets moving forward, like you said, Mason Plumlee's there at center. Is that really, people aren't really scared of Mason Plumlee, right? I mean, he's playing 16 minutes, only taking 4 shots, only, grabbing 5 rebounds. I know Montrezl Harrell's, one of the best probably bench players in the NBA right now, just with the energy he brings. But to me, this Hornets team needs, a reliable center that, maybe can run a pick and roll with Terry Rozier, can run a pick and pop with LaMelo Ball, anything like that. So I'm very interested to see what they do in the draft. If I'm the Hornets, of course, this is a winning league, right? You want to win games. That's why you play the game. I don't necessarily know that the Hornets need to make the playoffs this year. I do. It does feel like they're maybe 1, 2 pieces away from, being like, let's say, like the Cavaliers or the Bulls or something like that. So I'm almost wondering if they finish just right outside the playoffs and snag a big guy with maybe a late lottery pick.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them because obviously right now they're ninth, only a half game behind Brooklyn with the Hawks because they've been so bad lately. But if the Hornets get in that eighth seed, I think, or even seventh seed, I think that could be really good for them, just getting that experience.
Right.
You don't want a juggernaut team going in who hasn't been in the playoff before. So I think that would be big for them. But to your point about the draft, they're kind of in limbo right now. They need a guy
Hmm.
who can make plays now and
Yep.
or they need to get a big fish in free agency. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do either of those things.
Right. It almost feels like they need a running partner with LaMelo Ball. I think they'd prefer, a guy who can maybe stretch the floor a little bit. You could play a little bit inside, but I don't know that Terry Rozier is a guy who can cut it to play, that 2 man game with LaMelo Ball and kind of scare the defense a little bit. But last week we had talked when we previewed this game. I think we were both on the idea that maybe this was going to be, a barn burner kind of game, a flamethrower, whatever you want to call it, running up and down the court. I think I had said that maybe this turns out to be like a 130, 120 game, 130, 130, something like that. The Bucks held up to that end of the bargain, scoring 130. But the defense was on point this game, I would say. You only giving up 106 points. I know 106 sounds like a lot, but in the NBA, is it really? Probably not. They held the Hornets to 39% shooting on field goals and 36% from the 3-point line, comparing to the Bucks, 44% from the field, 40% from 3-pointers. Now I know the Hornets aren't the greatest team, Trevor. Like you said, they're right now they're vying for a playoff spot, trying to claw their way up, and once we come down the home stretch here. But were you impressed by the Bucks defense this game?
A little bit. I'm still concerned with their inability to generate turnovers.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it's hard for any team to be under 10 turnovers a game in college. This is the NBA, and the Hornets had eight.
Hmm.
They have a bunch of young players: PJ Washington, Bridges, Ball. We've talked about. They got Oubre in there. Like I don't expect the Bucks to force like 25, but as good as their defense was, you got to start generating more turnovers to, get to that, championship level. And they're just not doing it right now. And I don't know what the answer is, but against a team like the Hornets, you'd assume they'd be able to get more than eight.
And yeah, and to your point, the the Bucks generated only 8 turnovers, and the Hornets generated 13 turnovers on the Bucks. Maybe that's a little bit more than you'd like to see, but basketball is basketball. When you're without Brooke Lopez, Pat Connaughton, George Hill, turnovers happen. You get some young guys in there. Not with the biggest or with the most experience in the NBA. Throw them against a young team. It tends to happen with the turnovers. But I do agree with you that generating turnovers, especially against a young team like Charlotte, should come fairly easy in terms of NBA. Obviously, nothing in the NBA is easy, but relative to other teams playing. One other thing that I was impressed about in this game is the rebound differential. We've been talking ad nauseum all year about who's going to fill that center role, who's going to be that big guy who can kind of bang down low, grab rebounds, defend down low. The Bucks out rebounded the Hornets 62-40 this game. Offensive rebounds 17-9. I've been on record saying that rebounding wins you championships. Offensive rebound wins you championships. Grabbing a rebound, kicking it back out, and get basically two shots in one possession. Trevor, is this such a disparity in rebounding? Is this an anomaly, or is this something that Bucks fans maybe can expect as we roll down the last couple of months in the regular season here?
22 is probably an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's I'm of the mindset it's easier to grab a defensive board than an offensive board,
Hmm.
especially with the new NBA with all the offensive players seemingly sitting outside the arc. But I think the most important thing there was you touched on 17-9 in the offensive rebounds. If you can do that and you're an offense like the Bucks, you'll be perfectly fine. If they can continue to do that, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them. We'll have to see if they can do it to anybody outside of the Hornets. To your point, they're not that elite team, but it's a good start, and hopefully they can kind of build on that down the stretch.
Yeah, and then one last point that I wanted to touch on here was Juan Carter got 28 minutes off the bench. I think both of us last week had talked about great pickup for the Bucks. It's a guy who is kind of a defense mentality, not necessarily as much of a I guess dog as PJ Tucker, but he knows how to get. Juan Carter knows how to get after it. He's a Bob Huggins product, so he's going to be up in people's faces, giving them the business. 28 minutes, 10 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and then um, and and then majority of the time bouncing back between Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball. I believe I saw him on Kelly Oubre maybe once or twice. I saw a tweet this morning that said Javon Carter is probably in the best spot that he could be in the NBA right now. Best system, best coach, best players around him that for a player of his skill. Do you agree with that, or am I missing something? Or I guess I'll ask basically three questions here. Do you agree with that? Am I missing something? And did did this game open your eyes to Javon Carter a little bit that maybe he can definitely be a helpful come playoff time?
I agree for first, no for the second, and no the Bulls game for the third.
Okay. Okay, fair. Um, cool. And is there anything else you want to mention about this game? I mean, it was kind of it was a good win, I think, in both of our eyes. The Hornets are a team that you have to beat if you want to contend, and the Bucks took them down by 24.
Just Wigington, we've talked about how he's a solid player, he can come off the bench. Only player on the team with outside of Thanasis with a minus or negative plus minus and 1 for 5 from the free throw line. They added Carter Bembry. He's already having trouble getting minutes. You shoot 1 for 5 from the free throw line, you are going to be riding the pine the rest of the season. So he's got to
Totally
improve
agree.
on whatever happened there.
Totally agree. Let's hop into the next game. Miami Heat. Trevor, you had mentioned that going Bucks going down early, coming and then obviously coming back and icing the game with that Drew Holiday kind of layup floater, bank shot, whatever you want to call it, with minimal time left on the clock. Just to get in this game real quick. Three players on the Bucks had 25 or more points. That's coming from, I guess, the Bucks' big three. Giannis, 28, 17, and 5. Drew Holiday, 25, 6, and 11. Chris Middleton, 26, 4, and 3. I will say that Chris Middleton shot 8 of 20. Drew Holiday, 8 of 17. And Giannis, 9 of 20. So maybe not the greatest shooting nights for the big three, but they did enough to, get enough points on the board. They combined for, what is that, 21 for 12 plus 11 is what? 33. What did I say? 21, 30, 30. I don't know, whatever. For free throws. They shot very well from free. This is why I'm a journalism major, not a math major.
24
But
or 27.
24 or 27 from the free throw line for the big three. Does that speak about something? Like, I know we just talked about Giannis's free throws, but to see, once these guys get to the line and putting free throws in, you can even throw in Wes Matthews 2 of 2 from the line. Like, the Bucks shot very well from the free throw line in this game. Do you think that aided in this win at all?
Yeah, for sure. And, there are some other things on the Heat side that I think are interesting to note, but that certainly helps. I don't know. I think this just brings up more questions as to why our free throw shooting was so god awful against the Nets in a game
Hmm.
that we easily should have won. But I'm glad, whatever it was, maybe he's having them shooting free throws for 2 hours after every practice. I don't know, but you shoot 89, 85% from the free throw line as a team, especially with the firepower the Bucks have. You're not going to lose many games.
Yeah, and then Trevor, you just said that maybe there's some other things about the Heat. I'll let you touch on those in a little bit if you had any in the top of your head. Just to go over the Miami stats here a little bit. The leading scorer was Tyler Hero off the bench. 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists on 11 of 21 shooting, 6 of 10 from the 3-point line. Jimmy Butler had maybe one of the worst games that he's had as a pro. Only he went 2 of 14, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Now we know Jimmy Butler's not a great 3-point shooter. 0 of 3 from the 3-point line. And then the big story that I would say for Miami is Gabe Vincent scoring 21 points on 8 of 15 shooting and 5 of 11 from the 3-point line. So, Trevor, if you want to talk about those guys, go ahead. Otherwise, if you want to talk Miami Heat, go ahead as well.
Yeah, I think this game, and I hate to overreact. Obviously, the series is tied 2-2 on the season. The Heat crushed us the first game when we had Connaughton at center. We crushed them the second. They crushed us the third. We barely won the fourth. But I think this basically states that the Bucks are the team to beat between these two. The Heat shot 48% from three, and Gabe Vincent, good shooter. He's
Hmm.
not going to do this every night. Duncan Robinson, he's a great shooter. He's had a horrible year. Tyler Hero, good shooter. He's not going to shoot 6 for 10 for every night. And I look at Jimmy Butler, and this is kind of the Jimmy Butler that's always been there outside of the bubble. Like, I hate to break it to Miami fans, but he is not a shooter. And if he's not doing anything else, I mean, he's 34. Like, he's getting old. Like, he can't be, flying around the court anymore. So I look at the Heat. They shot 48%. I don't care how badly they blew it. When Tyler Hero has to be the dude, you shoot 48%, you still lose with the lead that they have. They're not going to do that every night. So to only put up 119 in a game like that, if I'm a Heat fan, I'd be very scared because I don't know where your offense is going to come from. I mean, they shoot just 35%. We're talking a blowout.
Yeah. Just to touch on that, where the Heat's offense has come a little bit. Kyle Lowry didn't play in this game. Victor Oladipo, he hasn't played all year. I think he came back late last week. If not, he's coming back early this week. Do you think either of those players help to fix it? I guess this is gonna be hard for us to do because right, we're Bucks fans. But put your mind in a Heat fan, as a Heat fan. Are you excited, about Victor Oladipo and Kyle Lowry? Do you think, that gives you an edge to maybe, capture that 1, 2, or three seed in the East?
I think Kyle Lowry helps. I think he's just decent all around. Like he's
Hmm.
not what he used to be. He's slower, he's older, but he's a decent player. Victor Oladipo, I think, actually takes away a lot from this team.
Agreed.
Like Victor Oladipo comes in, who do you take away minutes from, right? Gabe
Right.
Vincent or Duncan Robinson? That takes Duncan Robinson, as bad as he's been. There goes a 3-point shooter. Gabe Vincent, same thing. You're going to take away minutes from Hero, and Oladipo can't shoot the three, by the way. So I think Oladipo detracts from this team because he's like Jimmy Butler 2.0 in a guard body with no knees. So happy for Lowry if I'm a Heat fan, but Oladipo would scare me.
Right. And just to touch on Oladipo there, you had just mentioned, with knee injuries. Coming out of Indiana, Oladipo is seen as this guy who maybe like a Dwayne Wade kind of player who can slash, get to the hole, use athleticism to beat teams rather than, a shooting touch or anything. That would be very interesting to watch moving forward, coming off this, very bad knee injury that he had. How does he jump? How does he get to the hole? He's got to play different than obviously his rookie self. But how does that look, and how does that affect the Heat? And like you said, if I'm the Heat, I think I'm taking Oladipo off the bench until he shows me something that I'm as good as I was before my knee injury. Like I said, if you take away minutes from Duncan Robinson, him and Tyler Hero, are very similar players. Tyler Hero coming off the bench. I don't know that you want Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero both coming off the bench. And like you said, Gabe Vincent is playing well right now. It's hard to take minutes away from guys who are playing well to get another guy who's trying to ease back into the game in some minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Oladipo comes back and only sees 10 to 15 minutes for maybe the first couple of weeks, and um, we'll see what Eric Spoelstra does with him moving forward. But Trevor, I wanted to bring up Bobby Portis as well. 31 minutes, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. This feels to me like this is more Bobby Portis' role than it was last week when he was scoring, 27 points, 30 points. Um, I guess we can talk about Brooke Lopez now because we'll talk about Bobby Portis and centers. Brooke Lopez was just cleared to go 5-on-5 practice. I mean, whatever that means, how hard it's going, who knows? Imagine, Mike Budenholzer getting going as much as he can in practice and just kind of see what happens. Um, is Bobby Portis like a 15-point game on 6 of 12 shooting more what we can expect when Brooke Lopez comes back?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, you look at this game. Giannis took 20, Middleton 20, Holiday took 17. I think each one of them can take a couple less. Maybe Portis be at that 10 range to get Brooks some more. But, so far they're riding with the hot hands and it's working. And Bobby Portis can shoot the hell out of the ball. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to take too many shots away from him the way he's shooting from deep.
Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up is watching this game, it felt a lot like, of course you're going to say this as a biased fan, right? Especially against the Miami team that, it looked to me that Miami was playing soft. They were flopping a lot, getting calls from referees. I thought it was incredible refereeing job at the end of the game there with Drew Holiday's floater. Could that have been an offensive foul? That's probably getting called an offensive foul in say the first or second quarter. But to see the refs swallow their whistle, in the last 10 seconds there was a bright thing to see in my eyes, and I assume you agree with me on that.
I think it spoke volumes about the Heat, and Heat fans say whatever you want, tweet at me. I don't give a shit. It
Eh,
spoke volumes about quote unquote Heat culture to me.
yeah.
You talk about grit, grind, defense are going to be in your face, and at the end of the game, up one when you need a stop, you are flopping, and
Hmm.
on minimal contact flopping. Like we're not talking about crumbling to the ground, James Harden flopping. We're talking about trying to sell the hell out of it. That just spoke volumes to me. Like at the end of the day, when the game is on the line, the Heat are nothing more than guys that want to sell calls and try to get free, cheap fouls. In the
So
playoffs,
yeah.
it's not going to work. I mean, they're going to call it even tighter than they do now. I mean, I can't even imagine what happens if they play Philly the way they're getting foul calls. It's not going to work. So the Heat need to get it in their mind now that they either live up to the mantra or they die in the second round at least, because that shit ain't going to fly in the playoffs.
Totally agree with you. And, obviously playoffs, basketball is an odd sport, right? Because you can get, games early in the season where it almost feels like, like a big pickup game and guys are just out there getting their shots up, seeing how they feel, kind of getting into the swing of things. That obviously clicks probably after All-Star break. The intensity just ramps up like no tomorrow. And to see guys flopping, that may be fun as someone who's playing the Heat. I think it's a way that maybe not necessarily get fights going, but get a little intensity going, get a little pushing around going. And I do think that this Heat team is not great if you can get inside their head, and if they're getting if they're flopping and if flopping guys kind of going back at them. I think the Heat could be set up for like you said, maybe a first or even second round exit, especially like a team against Philadelphia where Joel Embiid's not going to take any shit from anyone. Giannis doesn't take any shit from anyone. Kevin Durant will get in people's faces. The Heat have I guess a mature team, an older team. It doesn't feel like the team is very mature though, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, but one other thing that I wanted to bring up, I know I've said that 3 times now, but Drew Holiday took the shot to win the game here, right? We've seen Giannis take the shot to win the game. We've seen Chris Middleton take the shot to win the game in the past, and I think we've seen it all this year. Trevor, games on the line like this. Let's say this you Bucks are down 3-2 to the Heat right now in the playoffs or whatever. Who do you want taking that last shot?
Either Middleton or Drew against the Heat. They batter the hell out of Giannis, and a lot of times he doesn't get the call, so that scares me. One, two, thing that I kind of touched on is it seems like his free throws is now more him getting the hell kicked out of him,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it more than mental. And so if he does get the call, he gets to the line. He's probably played 35 minutes. I don't trust him to make the free throws as much as I've loved him in big games. He tends to hit them more in games where he gets the calls, he gets to play more
Mm-hmm.
free, but so with all that in mind, I'd say probably Middleton or Drew, especially with Drew, the mismatch physicality wise. I think that's huge. And then you look at Chris Middleton and what he did last year in the playoffs, the shots that he can hit at the impossible angles he can hit. I think he's another guy. So against the Heat, I think Giannis is off the table, but I think that's more speaking towards the makeup of the Heat than anything else.
Yeah, and I'm in the same mindset with you. I think maybe I'm leaning a little bit more towards Chris Middleton because I mean, we've seen him do it, 3, 4, or 5 times, within the last 2 seasons. So Chris Middleton's been there. It's always tough, who to get the ball to at the last second. Miami Heat had that problem when they had Wade, Bosch, and LeBron. I know the Celtics. I remember the Celtics, the '08 Celtics having that problem with Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett. Even Rondo was taking those shots. Um, but Chris Middleton, like you said, he's hitting shots. When Chris Middleton's on, there might not be a better shooter in the NBA. I mean, Klay Thompson when he gets going, Steph Curry when he gets going. But really, there's not a much better shooter than Chris Middleton if he's hitting shots. And, he kind of proved that in the playoffs last year, especially with that 50-point finals game. So, yeah, I do agree with you. It's probably got to be a guard rather than Giannis, who's absolutely getting the piss beat out of him. And, you're relying on him to get free throws after going 40 minutes of just getting absolutely tackled every single time he touches the ball. But Trevor, anything else you want to talk about this game? I guess we should mention that the Bucks were down 10 and kind of made their way back and won this game, which I think speaks a little bit that the Bucks, they didn't lay down and die. They wanted this game, and I think with the NBA's kind of lost rivals in the like teams aren't really rivals anymore. This almost feels like it's one of the, I shouldn't say up and coming, but an existing rivalry that maybe doesn't have a lot of steam yet, but maybe another playoff series could kind of fuel that fire a little bit. So let's move on to um, Friday night. Friday night that was, yeah. The Bucks traveled to Chicago, where they won 118-112. Bucks side of the ball, Giannis 34 and 16, Drew Holiday 26 8 and 5, Chris Middleton 22 6 and 7, and then the only other person over 10 points was Bobby Portis with 12. Um, I mean, this game was kind of reminiscent of the last couple games. Like Giannis, doing the work like he does. Drew Holiday having, really Drew Holiday had a great week this week. Now that I'm looking at it, and then Chris Middleton doing what he does. On the Bulls side of the ball, Zach LaVine led the way with 30 points. DeMar DeRozan added another 29. And outside of that, they only had one other player over 10 points with Nikola Vucevic with 19 points. Just looking at the matchup stats here, they shot about the same. Bulls 50%, Bucks 49% from the field. Bulls 38% from three, Bucks 32% from the three, and Bulls 73% from the line. Bucks 67% of the line. So pretty similar numbers all around. Trevor, this may be a playoff series to come. Are you worried about the Bulls at all? And then I guess run down what your thoughts on this game were.
This is why Billy Donovan has been fired at a lot of places. I like DeMar DeRozan, but their entire offense was DeMar DeRozan on a pick and roll pull up from mid range. Not
Mm-hmm.
only is that not going to work in the new NBA, I don't care how good he is at mid range, and he's probably the best in the league at it. You can't just run one play. I mean, what the hell are the other three players on the court for?
Right.
That's all their offense identity was. He took 30 shots, scored 29 points. That's not good enough. And then you look at LaVine, and look, LaVine's a great player. He took 26 shots. You took 94 shots as a team. 56 came from those two guys. You got a guy like Vucevic, who is one of the most underrated centers in the league, in my opinion. He took
Agreed.
13. He hit 8 of them, 2 for 4 from deep, and you're not even trying to get him going. That is dumbfounding to me, especially if you can get the Bucks in foul trouble down deep, then he can just pin them down deep. So that for the Bulls was, sad for me. They got to change something up because that won't work come playoff time. For the Bucks side, two things, I guess. So sloppy. I
Yeah, agreed.
mean, the whole game. I mean, especially Serge Ibaka, he looked like he forgot what sport he was playing.
Hmm.
And then to the third quarter, they lose 35-24. I saw the Bucks point differential in the third quarter of the season is 25th. Every other quarter, it's like top 11. If I'm Budenholzer, I'm putting the bench out there to start the third quarter because I don't
Got it.
know what it is about the starters, but they are not doing their damn job. And look, 3-0 week. I'm not trying to nitpick here, but you get into the playoffs, that kills you. One quarter kills you, and one quarter of one game can kill you. So you got to figure this shit out because there is no way you should be this much worse in the third quarter.
Agreed. And that's kind of been a running theme with the Bucks, right? Ever since, Giannis has kind of evolved in superstardom. Chris Middleton's turned into that all-star. Even in the Eric Bledsoe days, the Bucks, to me, I guess, it always felt like they kind of came out slow out of halftime. In my mind, the third quarter is probably I mean, you could even make the argument it's the biggest quarter to win. It's either the third or fourth quarter. But to come out hot and to kind of demoralize a team right out of halftime, I think is such an important part of basketball. To build, maybe a 10-point lead in the second half of the game, you have a little bit of a cushion to work with. And like you said, that hasn't really rang true with the Bucks this season. So it is very odd to see it on a championship team is not playing a full 4 quarters. And obviously, everything that we say, we have to throw in the caveat that there are injuries. The whole team's not playing together, but at some point you have to learn to play with injuries, right? You have to learn to play without Brooke Lopez, which I think the Bucks have done a pretty good job of. You have to learn to play without that backup guard in George Hill, which, I mean, Javon Carter's been playing all right. And you have to learn to play without Pat Connaughton, which I think is a major, Pat Connaughton not being on the Bucks, I think is a major story that nobody's talking about because he does everything for this team. He can hit threes, he can get to the lane, he can defend, he can take smaller guys, he can defend bigger guys. He dives for loose balls everywhere. And I do think that his absence is noticed. It's just that, like I said before, Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton are all playing very good basketball right now to kind of mask those deficiencies. So to get into this game a little bit, I just wanted to say Drew Holiday hit a couple shots down the stretch again, which was good to see. It looked like this week that Drew Holiday was kind of the guy that maybe we wanted the ball to be in his hands. We talked a little bit about that, and once again to touch on that third quarter, Chicago outscored the Bulls. Chicago outscored the Bucks 35-24 in the third quarter. But the Bucks closed the game out, outscoring the Bulls 37-24 in this quarter. Were you happy with the way the Bucks closed this game out?
Yeah, I was, and I think we talked about it briefly, and don't need to get into it too much. But Javon Carter, man, I mean,
Hmm.
he was only 3 of 4, 2 of 3 from deep, 8 points, one block, one rebound. That doesn't jump off the score sheet, but that tough reverse layup,
Hmm.
breaking the press, that's something that DiVincenzo's probably airballing. Um, and just the defense that he did, a couple shots here and there. I mean, that's the role you bring him in for. I was very disappointed Bembry wasn't used more. I think he would have
Hmm.
been a hell of a lot better in West, but if you can get Carter doing that nightly or something close to that nightly, that brings you a lot more than just what the stats show off the bench.
Yeah, and then speaking of guys who probably should have been used or who may be used more, Serge Ibaka only had 12 minutes in this game. I mean, the Bucks traded for this guy to be, I think, what we both decided on is a center, maybe a big guy off the bench who could run a little bit. I mean, they're only using him 12 minutes. Is this something that you're worried about, or something that you like to see that Serge Ibaka is only getting 12 minutes?
I actually loved it because he was so shit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just not even going to beat around the bush. So I like that it didn't seem like Bud had it in his mind that I have to give this guy a certain amount of minutes because he was horrible. I think this does show the problem though with the Bucks if Serge is playing like this because until Brooke comes back and pray he doesn't get hurt again, Ibaka was bad. Who are you going to bring in off the bench to be that center power forward, right? Like
Hmm.
there's nobody.
Um,
So you got to either play small or he's got to show up. So I'm glad he did it, but if Brooke doesn't come back, Ibaka's got to do better.
yeah. Let's. Is there anything else you want to touch on this game before you talk about Brooke Lopez a little bit?
Just I like the mental rebounding from Giannis. Started the game 1 for 5 from the free throw line. He couldn't buy a free throw. Ended hitting 9 of his last 14. Hit some big ones down the stretch, and you don't always expect him to be great. Obviously, the Bucks team, mostly because of him, weren't great. But if you're able to hit him down the stretch when it matters, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, totally agree. Just to touch on the bench big guy again. Do with this information what you want, but DeMarcus Cousins just had a 30-point game for the Nuggets.
Look good.
Um, yeah, looked very good. Let's talk about Brooke Lopez a little bit. Like I had mentioned before, kind of cleared for full 5-on-5 contact practice. Trevor, what's your? I guess it's tough to make predictions on when guys are coming back in the NBA because it's such a physical sport. You need to be basically at full strength to be able to bang down low with centers. When would you expect Brooke Lopez to be back after hearing the news of doing some 5-on-5 practice?
Well, with 5-on-5, like I'm looking at this week, the Bucks play Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, back to back, and then Saturday. I don't think they'd start him on that road trip, which lasts a week.
Right.
You got the playoffs. I think looking at the schedule, they'll probably want to give him 7 games. And now we're talking Friday, April 1st, second day of a back to back versus the Clippers at home. Then they play Dallas, at Chicago, Boston, at Detroit, at Cleveland. I think that's a pretty good ramp up period. And depending on seeding, the first round could kind of be a ramp up period too. But you look at the middle of that schedule. There's a 3 game stretch where they play at Memphis, at Philly, at Brooklyn. Those are going to be punishing games physically.
For
So I
sure.
think you just kind of wait till that Clippers Dallas stretch, slow him into it, maybe 10 minutes a game, up to 20 by that last game of the season, and then he's ready to go for the playoffs.
Right. And then the effect that Brooke Lopez has on the Bucks is, I think, immeasurable. Um, you know, it's tough to do this because Giannis has such a high motor, but Brooke Lopez almost gives Giannis a little bit of a rest on defense because he can play that shot blocking role. He can play that guy that takes up space when guards, drive to the paint and throw up floaters. He can also stretch the defense out. So when we're playing, inevitably playing Philly in the playoffs, to get Joel Embiid out of the paint is going to be huge. To get Andre Drummond out of the paint, to get that rebounding out of the paint is going to be huge. I know Vucevic, stretches the floor as well. But I don't think Brooke Lopez is any slouch on defense, at least guarding, big guys who can kind of stretch the floor a little bit. So more than just offense, Brooke Lopez may be, other than Giannis down low, Brooke Lopez may be the best post defender, best, shot blocker on this team. Is that, do you agree with me on that, or am I kind of overreacting to Brooke Lopez a little bit?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one thing that also is big too is he can eat up fouls, right? He's not going to be
Mm,
like a Tony Snell where he plays 31 minutes, gets 5 fouls, and does nothing else statistically. But, if you can have a guy that just takes 2 fouls away that Giannis would usually have, and he's able to be at like 3 fouls the whole game,
hmm.
that's huge for what he can do, how aggressive he can be. So I think that's a pretty underrated aspect as well. And then at 3 point shooting, like he's been gone for a while, basically the whole season. So I've forgotten about it too. But
Right.
man can stroke it and he can stretch that defense. And if you get Drummond out of the paint, a guy like that, a guy like Claxton out of the paint, who's going to guard Giannis or Middleton or even Drew as a point guard down low?
Right. Yeah. It, it feels very Brooke Lopez feels like a very underrated player in the NBA, right? When he's healthy and on his game, I think he's as much as to blame, or not to blame, but to credit for a championship as anyone else on this Bucks team. Not necessarily because he's as good as Giannis or as good as Chris Middleton, but just that role he plays. It's just a perfect fit for the Bucks that worked out great. And I think I speak for both of us when I say that having a healthy Brooke Lopez on the team is very fun and very inviting as Bucks fans. I just wanted to mention one more thing about the Bulls game that I missed when we talked about it. Did you think Derek Jones, Grayson Allen was worse than what Grayson Allen did to Alex Caruso?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you look at what Grayson Allen did. First hand went 100% for the ball. Second hand, it looked like it also went to the ball. It was unnecessary. I don't think there's any beating around the bush for that. But it was clear the whole thing was going for the ball. I don't care what Derek Jones says. When Grayson Allen has the ball at his hip trying to sidearm, and the only part of your arm that you bring down to try to stop it is your elbow right at his face, you can't tell me you're going for the ball.
right.
It's just stupid. And, it's, I don't know if it's more comical or sad, but all the Bulls fans saying, yeah, he deserved it. You were bitching about Grayson Allen, a hard foul, admittedly, but the fall was the worst part about it. You were bitching about that. Now a dude gets elbowed in the face and it's retaliation. Like,
Hmm.
wasn't your whole thing that a guy got hurt? So why are you happy that your guy is elbowing another guy in the face? It's just kind of an example of the little brother syndrome, if
Yep.
that's what you want to call it. Like, come on. And Caruso's still hurt. Yeah. It's not like Grayson Allen threw a punch at him, right?
Hmm.
It's a hard foul. It just blows my mind that Bulls fans are so salty about this. And also, they acted like they were going to beat him up. Those fans were silent the first
Hmm.
quarter. I mean, they could have been playing at the Sun Belt Conference Championship, and I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference.
Right. Shout out Tristan Thompson too, who said that we'll go after Grayson Allen, even though he wasn't on the team when Alex Caruso got hurt,
Yeah,
and Tristan
he was
Thompson played.
maybe
Yeah,
go on.
he played 20 minutes, 4 points on 2 of 4 shooting. Really good job, Tristan Thompson. It's almost like you maybe shouldn't be a starting center in the NBA anymore.
He was the worst player on the court by a mile. I mean,
Yep.
as a sixth, I mean, this is not an over exaggeration. I have seen middle schoolers and high schoolers with better jump hooks
Hmm.
than him, and he's a professional. And then
Right.
he got the technical, which at the end of the game turned out to be huge. All those fouls. I mean, why is this dude even getting minutes in the NBA more than,
Hmm.
10 a game?
Right. He finished with the plus minus of -25 this game, which is not great if you're a Bulls fan. Um,
Impressive.
you're right. And Tristan Thompson should probably be giving LeBron James a lot of money for giving him a career. But Trevor, I think we're both very happy that the Bucks went 3-0 last week. Is there anything else you want to mention from the prior week before we, rapid fire through these games coming up? So let's talk
Nope.
about the game. Let's talk about the game today. We have a finals rematch against the Phoenix Suns. Trevor, you had mentioned it off the start of the show that Chris Paul and Devin Booker will both be out of this game. Phoenix, I'll say they probably destroyed the Bucks last time they played. They won 131-107. Um, Cam Johnson seems to be the guy right now for Phoenix who's kind of got the hot hand and who they're going to. What are your expectations for this game? I think the Bucks are favored by right here. They're currently favored by 8.5. It opened at 7.
Well, the interesting thing too, and I'm just seeing this now too. Obviously, Saric is out, Kaminsky is out, Chris Paul is out, Booker is out. From their injury report right now, it looks like Cam Johnson is also out as of
Okay.
March 5th, so yesterday. So, I mean, even with just Booker and Paul out, this has to be a win. This really
Hmm.
has to be a win now. And I don't think it really matters how it looks, right? We would love to win by 30. Just get the win and nothing else really matters.
Yep, totally agree. We haven't done this in a while because we haven't had a game on our. I guess we haven't done a show on game day, but let's do some underdog picks. Promo code Flurry. Let's start with Giannis. 49.5 points, rebounds, and assists.
I'll go over. I hope he
Yeah,
plays enough.
this feels like a game where Giannis wants to win, and he'll kind of play with that dog mentality. I could see him going for 40 points alone in this game, which is only you have to collect 10 points, or you have to collect 10 other rebounds and assists. I think that easily does it. I think that over hits, and obviously that alludes to my next one, Giannis. 30.5 points over under. Like I just mentioned, I think Giannis could go for 40 this game, so I would definitely take the over on this.
I would take the under just because I'm a little worried about this game getting out of hand if Cam Johnson,
Fair.
Paul, and Booker aren't playing. But yeah, this will be a weird game.
Yep. Giannis rebounds 12.5.
Probably over.
Yep. Chris Middleton 29.5 points, rebounds, and assists.
I'd take over.
I think it's going to be weird for me to say this, but I do think Chris Middleton assists. I think it'll be more than what we're used to. Like I said, I think this is a big Giannis game, maybe a Bobby Portis game as well. So Chris Middleton, 19.5 points.
Over.
Over. Drew Holiday, 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists.
I think I don't know why I'm gonna go under. I feel like I don't think he's bad. I just think this is one of the games where he's kind of capped at 10 shots. Everybody else gets a lot of looks.
Yeah, he probably has campaign all game too, and campaign's a guy who can easily get under players' skins and kind of mess with them a little bit. So maybe this isn't a big Drew Holiday game. So I think I agree with you. And I think I'm going to go under on these next two as well for Drew Holiday. 23.5 points plus rebounds and 18.5 points.
Yeah, it seems about right.
Okay. And then to round it out, we got the last four here. We'll do 2 and 2. Bobby Portis, 24.5 points and points plus rebounds and 16.5 points.
Oh, man. I might go under on the points, over on both.
I think so
Just
too.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. That one's a tough one for me. I probably wouldn't bet that one, but that one's a tough one because I do think it'll be. I think it's gonna be Giannis Bobby Portis show, but I don't know how much Bobby Portis contributes to that. And obviously, you'll get some from Middleton and Holiday. And I'm going over on both these next ones. Grayson Allen, 14.5 points, rebounds, and assists, and 9.5 points.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just an off game against the Bulls.
Yep. So in order for both those to hit, all you need is 5 threes from Grayson Allen, which I think is definitely doable against the Suns team, who's down, so many guards. So that's all the underdog picks. Promo code Flurry. And let's. I guess we kind of did preview it a little bit, but is there anything else to talk about the Suns? I mean, it's so hard to talk about the Suns when they have, really their three best. I guess DeAndre Ayton's there, but three out of five starters are down. Is this game that maybe Mikal Bridges goes for 30? Probably not because he's not, a go-to scorer. Or is this a game where DeAndre Ayton kind of dominates in the paint?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game also because Phoenix has the luxury of being up 8 games in the West. Like it's
Yeah,
pretty much already locked up for them. And with all their injuries, they're never going to play it safe, right? Like Monty Williams, the Phoenix Suns, they're never going to phone it in for a game. That's not what I'm saying. But,
right.
if it starts getting out of hand, I mean, they play us. They have to go to at Orlando Tuesday, then a back to back at Miami Wednesday, Toronto Friday, LA Sunday. It gets a pretty action packed, a lot of travel. I'm sure if the Bucks can tread water for the third, get into the fourth, down 10, I don't think they put up much of a fight. Just kind of say, all right, let's just kind of rally for that East Coast trip.
Yep, totally agree. Anything else we need to touch on with the Suns? Like I said, it's kind of hard with so many guys out.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on to later this week, where the NBA scheduling is added again. I guess I'll mention the schedule. Then we can break down each game separately. On Tuesday, the Bucks go to Oklahoma City. Wednesday, they go back home to Atlanta. So just off the top of my head, talking about the Thunder, I mean, this needs to be a 30-point victory. I don't think that this game is going to be in jeopardy whatsoever. The Thunder are a bad team. 20 and 43, 14th in the West. So the Bucks are going from the 1 seed in the West to the 14th seed in the West, playing each other. They're playing. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a great player, is averaging just short of 24 points. And he seems to be, maybe one of the only guys who is contributing on this team. If the Thunder are, maybe the 8th seed, does he get an All-Star appearance? Maybe. But does this game worry you at all, Trevor?
No, the only thing for me is, obviously you'd like to win by 20 or 30. They had a good comeback earlier this year against the Bucks in
They
Milwaukee,
did.
but for me, as long as you can kind of load manage Giannis and all the guys with their minutes and get a win, I think that's a pretty good place to be.
Totally agree. Let's hop into Atlanta, which I think it might maybe a big letdown game because for some reason they have to travel back across the country the next day. Um, I know, Trevor, you're not a big fan of NBA scheduling, So, what are your? Do you even have any thoughts for this Hawks game, or are you kind of in the mindset for me that this may be a big a letdown game that they drop to an Eastern Conference opponent?
I mean, why not just flip the games scheduling? Atlanta at
Right,
home Tuesday, and then at like you can't tell me there's shit going on in Oklahoma City on Wednesday, March 9th at 7 o'clock p.m. There is
right.
no way. Like, what is? So yeah, and it's the second day of a back to back. Then they have Thursday, Friday off before another West Coast trip. If you're the Bucks, this is the one game you can probably lose this week and be fine with, just because Trey Young's just going to pull some stuff out of his ass. Like,
Hmm.
this is just one of those games written all over it.
Right. And to his credit, I mean, Trey Young's an incredible basketball player. If you do want a chance to win this game, you probably have to have Drew Holiday on Trey Young the whole game. Whenever Trey Young's in, Drew Holiday probably has to be in this game for you to win this game. And will that affect Drew Holiday moving forward? Maybe. He's going to be like tired. Maybe he doesn't see a ton of minutes in this Thunder game, just looking ahead of guys, looking ahead of teams. But after Wednesday, they get a huge break until Saturday, where for some reason they go to. I guess they're going on the Western Conference road trip, but for some reason they're going from Oklahoma City to Milwaukee to San Francisco to play Golden State, which should be you would imagine it'd be a very fun game to watch. Golden State's down Draymond Green right now. I do believe that there are reports that maybe he comes back this week, which which Golden State needs right now. In the last 10 games, I think Golden State's 2-8, and I think that shows how not how good of a player Draymond Green is, but how much he means to this team. Um, so Trevor, I know it's what 7 days away, but do you have any initial thoughts for this Golden State game? It'll be on ABC, so I mean it'll be national TV. This will be a game that I know there's college basketball going on, but the NBA fans will definitely dive in and take note of this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Draymond. Obviously, Wiseman is still out. Curry's resting Monday. It's going to be weird because they play talk about NBA scheduling again, at Denver Monday. They play, altitude. They play the Clippers at home Tuesday, at Denver again Thursday, and then home versus the Bucks Saturday. So that altitude, I mean, if they're playing, they're going to be tired. The Bucks have 2 days off. The Warriors have one. If Draymond Green is not back, the Bucks have to win this game. I mean, they
Hmm.
should be winning even with Draymond, but without Draymond and Wiseman, you have to win the game. As long as you can slow down Curry or Thompson, you're probably going to win too.
Totally agree. So I think we're both in the mindset that this should probably be a 3-1 week, 2-2 at the worst. I think, right?
Yeah, I might actually say, hmm, yeah, I would probably have to be 2-2 at the worst, just because of how bad. I mean, Phoenix, they have a lot of winning players, but with so many guys out, you can't even lose to a team like Phoenix with all those injuries. So yeah, it's got to be 2-2 at least.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to create a new segment right now. It's always good that when you host a podcast to create a new segment in the middle of the season. But let's do this, Trevor. Give me your MVP of the week for the last week of games for the Bucks.
It would have to be Drew Holiday,
Gotta
right?
be.
Game winner
Yep.
against Miami, big shots against Chicago. Charlotte didn't really matter, but it would have to be him.
Yep. Totally agree with you on that. And then just I guess looking at an overview of the rest of the season, are you happy with where the Bucks are at right now? I guess in regards to the East and in regards to the elite teams in the NBA.
It's gonna be so tough because right now, I mean, Brooklyn is only a half game over Charlotte and Atlanta, but if the season were to end right now, you probably got Toronto or Brooklyn being the 7 and the 8. And if the Bucks are 3.5 games out of the first, I'd rather play Toronto.
Yep.
I'd rather play Toronto as the 2 seed than the 1. So there are so many moving pieces that we probably won't get a good indication of what's going to happen until the week before the playoffs. The East is loaded. Whoever
Yep.
comes out of the East, I, I would say they would usually be the favorite, but they might be beaten up so bad that whoever comes out of the West might just be able to kind of walk over a tired team, because this East, I mean, the 6th seed is the Cavs at 36-27. That tells you really all you need to know.
Something that I guess too is nice about this Bucks team is it feels like they don't have expectations this year, right? It kind of feels like they're playing free ball. People in the media aren't really talking about them. I mean, everyone's going to talk about Giannis, who right now has the highest PER for a season in NBA history, which is for some reason getting swept under the rug by the media. But they're not what the 50-8 team that they were 58 games a couple years back. They're not dominating the regular season this year. And it's kind of a little reminiscent of last year where, the Bucks were projected to probably come out of the East. Went through a little hiccups in the middle of the regular season and kind of turned it on come playoff time. This almost feels like what's happening again, and I do think it's better for the Bucks that this happens rather than being the team that is out there winning every game by 20, and everyone's like, who's there to stop the Bucks?
Yeah, and they do have, at least after the All-Star break, I don't know what it is now with the games that they have played. They did have the second hardest schedule in the NBA, I want to say,
Hmm.
which would usually be not a good thing. But I think it's good to ramp up come playoff times. You need to be playing playoff teams. And, looking at their schedule, as bad as the Atlanta series is, there aren't there's maybe I think one back to back I'm seeing. And so that is big too. If you can play contenders, get ramped up, not be too tired, that's a big win.
Yep. So Trevor, finally, are the Bucks still the team to come out of the East right now in your mind?
I'm gonna say to be determined. I don't think there is a team to come out of the East. You
It's
know,
yeah,
the
it's so
Heat are
loaded.
the Heat are 3 games above everybody. They didn't shock me. We don't know what we're gonna get with the 76ers or the Nets. And the Celtics, who the hell knows there? They've been looking great. So I don't think there's any one team. I think you could honestly pick 7 teams to come out of the East, and I wouldn't be too mad about any of them.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument. I think there's even an argument to make a pick. Probably everyone except for probably the top 8 teams, everyone except for Charlotte, right? That line cuts at Charlotte there. So I know the Bucks have 18 games left. The last month and a half of the regular season should be very fun. Obviously, college basketball playoffs are here after today. But if you're a basketball fan and you want to watch some good basketball, watch the last month and a half of NBA basketball because that's really when the intensity ramps up, especially for the teams that I guess I'll use a college basketball term are on the bubble of getting into the playoffs. Like look what the Lakers did to the Warriors last night with LeBron James scoring 56 points. Like these teams need to win, and this intensity is going to be ramped up. So it should be a fun last month and a half for Bucks basketball, especially. Anything else you want to mention about last week, this week, anything at all? All
Nothing.
right, I'll do my weekly plug of telling everyone to go check out everything we have going on at Flurry Sports. A ton of college basketball stuff out, and when I say a ton, Trevor and I were talking about this before. I actually have to write 3 conference tournament articles yet today. We have a whole bunch of those coming out. Trevor is a part of that. Our guy Henry's a part of it. New guy Kyle's a part of it. So we got a ton of college basketball stuff coming out. NASCAR is still going on, or I guess is ramping up here with Zach and Henry's show. We'll be back with Lombardi Sweep fairly shortly to talk some Aaron Rodgers stuff, to talk some Packers stuff, and we should have a great time covering the college basketball tournament. I implore everybody to watch conference tournaments for college basketball. In my mind, those are just as fun to watch as NCAA tournament, proved by that Murray State Morehead State game last night. But other than that, there was a YouTube video that I would like everyone to watch as homework too. During All Star break, they did the 75th anniversary stuff, and NBA put out a YouTube video miking up a whole bunch of people and just kind of following players around all weekend, which is very cool to see all the legends, kind of mix it in with the guys right now with Giannis and LeBron, meeting Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's a cool video. But other than that, I think that's all we got. Follow us on Twitter at Luke Rhyme, at TrevorLand2, Flurry Sports. It would be greatly appreciated if you read as many Flurry Sports articles as you can. It not only helps us, but it helps the company grow as well. So on that note, I think I speak for Trevor, but we're out of here. I think we'll both be at TV sets to watch that Suns game. Hopefully you join along, and we'll be back next week for some more Bucks coverage.